Let's talk about Frankfurt, the only other team in German football other than Bayern and Leverkusen who are interested to finish in the top four, it seems, this year. We got a really good question. Let me just pull it up from one of our subscribers, if I can find it, because this chat is so busy. Oh yeah, here it is, from Pablo. Do you think with Frankfurt's recent track record of developing talent and making big profits, plus a quality coach, can become a regular contender for Champions League spots in the coming years? My short answer to that is yes. I think they're absolutely poised to be exactly that. I think that Frankfurt as a club has done phenomenal things. You know, the fact that they are able to cash in on players like Randal Kolo-Muani for 95 million euros, then this Mamouche deal that earned him 70 million euros. By the way, he was excellent this weekend, right? He scored a hat-trick for Man City, so he is for real. The fact that they have gone since and, signed other players to kind of fill that void. Can Ozun, the young player they brought in from Nuremberg, he's very much making him the most out of the opportunity that's provided now that Mamouche is gone. Completely different player, I understand this, but Dino Topmöller has shifted the tactics a little bit. I thought they were fantastic today against Holstein Kiel. I watched this game while working out this morning. I thought Dino Topmöller shows that he is a really, really good coach who can adapt to this changing situations in his squad quite well. He tweaked his tactic a little bit. They're a bit more dominant. They're a little bit less reliant on counterattacks. They're using players like Mario Götze and Can Ozun to control the ball, to control attacks. I personally think Frankfurt are poised with everything that's going on, with the fact that they have control over the stadium, the finances in the city of Frankfurt, an enormous fan base, one of the biggest in German football, right? A city with lots of financial power. I think they are poised to be a top four team, and I can actually see them do something similar than Leverkusen did with Javi Alonso and, go on a surprise title run.
Yeah. I mean, I think Champions League football's well more than deserving for Frankfurt. And actually, we worked this out before we came on air that they are poised to finish with their highest ever points tally in the Bundesliga since it changed to 3 points for a win, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're currently level at this point in the season with Adi Hütter's side, who finished the 2021 season with 60 points, which is the highest ever in the Bundesliga in his current form. And at this point of the season, Adi Hütter's team are on the exact same points tally. Interestingly enough, they were fifth at the time, whereas this team are third, which is maybe quite telling about some things that I think we also have to kind of bear in mind in terms of how well this Frankfurt side are doing. But in terms of the actual question, yeah, I mean, I think if there's any team in the Bundesliga who looks set with the capacity, with the size, with the fan base, with the finances, with the squads, I think it's Frankfurt, and they just continue to be an impressive team on and off the pitch. I think you really can't overstate just how impressive they've been in terms of like the head coaches that they picked up, and I think that's such an understated thing because we always talk about Dortmund and how they always pick these stupid head coaches based on the fact that they played for Dortmund 20 times 10 years ago, or they're in the youth team, or there's some youth head coach, or their best friends were Vasquez's kid at high school or some nonsense. And you look at that list of head coaches that Frankfurt picked up in the last 10 years, Niko Kovac has done a great job there. Adi Hütter did a great job. Oliver Glasner did a great job before he basically fell out with the club and left. He only left because he fell out with them. He still did a great job there. And Dino Topmöller, they've just plucked from Bayern's youth academy, basically, youth coach there. I think he was youth coach at Bayern. He's definitely the coach and stuff.
He was the assistant to Julian Nagelsmann, and his father was a head coach in Frankfurt way back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, of course.
Almost won the Bundesliga title too.
And yeah, so that's a huge part of it. They do the homework with these head coaches where, the likes of Leipzig just keep hiring Red Bull people, Dortmund keep hiring Dortmund people, and even to the same extent, Bayern have really kind of fumbled that appointment a lot recently as well. You add that to the fact that they're obviously very good at, signing players, turning them over, selling them on, but always having a constant kind of stream of players to come and go. It's just really, really impressive, to be honest with you. I mean, that performance against Holstein Kiel was actually one that I thought was really encouraging for a few reasons. Obviously, they're picking up points, but the other thing as well, as I said a few weeks ago, off the back of Marmoush moving on, that we really need to start seeing more of these kind of, I think I call them like supporting actors at this point, or supporting cast, to Hugo Ekitike step up and start scoring goals.
Yeah.
Specifically mentioned Hugo Larsson, who scored what was a bonkers goal. If I had to describe this goal, it's really worth going and looking up the highlights for this.
It was insane.
It was basically like a scissor kick, but he only uses his knees. He never actually outstretches his legs. It's one of the most bizarre goals I've seen all season.
And when you watch it, you think it's an accident, but then you watch the replay and you're like, oh, he meant this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good that he step up, because we'd see more of him. Chan Ozun, as you said, stepped up, got a goal. And then Tuta obviously picked him up as well. I think Nathaniel Brown also had a great game as well. We need to see more of a collective from Frankfurt, because it was also a game in which Hugo Ekitike missed a penalty. And had these other players not stepped up, you could have seen Frankfurt potentially, dropping points to a Holstein Kiel team that seemed quite buoyed for the most part, and tried to do what they could against Frankfurt, but they're obviously not going to pick up anything in Frankfurt. So I think it's encouraging for Frankfurt. Off the pitch, I think they'll run really well, and on the pitch, they're obviously doing well as well. But the other thing I think that we have to mention as well, before I pass this back to you, because I'm running out of there to keep talking, is that they've been, how do I word this? They've obviously been very good in their own right, but I think they've also benefited from the fact that two of what we would consider the traditional big four, if you will, in the Bundesliga, have just completely gone off the boil this season in RB Leipzig and Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah.
Dortmund, obviously, as we just talked about, closer to getting relegated than they are to actually finishing the top four at this rate. Leipzig somehow are still fourth, despite the fact that it feels like they haven't won a football game since 2013. Even Stuttgart, who did so well last season, have been inconsistent in the Bundesliga. And Leverkusen, Leverkusen are obviously above them, so it doesn't really matter. But I just think if you kind of look through that, if you look at the kind of chasing back of clubs that are in the top four right now, you've got Frankfurt, you've got Freiburg, you've got Mainz, you've got Gladbach. Maybe you could include Wolfsburg in that as well, as these teams who are all doing a lot better than I think a lot of people expected this season. But kind of spliced in between that, you've got Leipzig, you've got Stuttgart, you've got Dortmund, maybe even include Hoffenheim, a club that probably should be up there or thereabouts, based on the money that's been spent on that squad. So they're taking advantage. There's no doubt about it. They're taking advantage of some big hitters just completely falling off this season. And hey, that's not to take anything away from them, but you obviously need to be better than the teams above you, but you also have to take advantage of the teams that fall below you as well. So things have fallen in place for them, and hopefully they can kind of go on and just kind of go from strength to strength. But it looks like they're going to finish this season with record points tally in the Bundesliga. If you kind of look at their kind of progress through the years, it's just they're just going from strength to strength, really. Especially last 4 seasons, like in Oliver Glasner's first season, they finished 11th, then 7th, then 6th last year. Right now they're 3rd, and at this moment in time, I wouldn't bet against them finishing 3rd in May, or perhaps even passing Leverkusen if Leverkusen more or less give up on the Bundesliga.
Yeah, and I think that Europa League title that they won has really helped them, because like once you get into that final stages of the Europa League, quarterfinals onwards, semi-final, or you win it, it's financially quite lucrative, right? Mm-hmm. And it is where the Europa League winner is known, right? Frankfurt have won a European Cup. And I think that really helped them internationally too, to grow their reputation a little bit. And that can often then be the foundation to become a bigger club in its own right. I mean, Dortmund didn't win the UEFA Cup, the predecessor to the Europa League in 93-94, but they reached the final. They made a lot of money from that, and that actually turned them into the club that they are today, the super club in German football, is because it was on the backs of that they, had the finances and the reputation to become a bigger club in German football. And of course, then won the Champions League in 97. And so this can go a long way, right? If you keep building on it. And I think that's exactly what they're doing. They're building on it, and they're doing it in a really clever and smart way, and they're doing it slowly. They're not forcing it, right? They're still in a place where they're like, if someone comes in from Mamouche, they're like, okay, we'll take that money and then we're trying to reinvest it. And we already have the replacements in the squad. Like everyone was like, oh yeah, but Schweiz coming in, Wahi's coming in. They did the replacements for Mamouche, but really the replacement was already in the squad, and it was Can Uzun, right? He was the player who took the squad position, even though he's a different player. But then they're like, well, we wanted to kind of change the way we're playing anyway. So there was already a plan in place to replace him. And I think that is something that they have done really well. And I think it's paying off. And if they slowly but surely keep building on it, I think there's going to be a lot of success there for them down the road. But also, Stefan, we're out of time, so I'm going to wrap this up. As always, this show is brought to you by Bet Online. Thank you for the question. It was a good one, and I think we enjoyed really chatting about it, and we're going to try to incorporate this more often. We're going to have the usual slate of content. This Champions League matches, of course, both Dortmund and Bayern Munich looking to get the job done. Which in Dortmund's case, I think is going to be quite easy because it's a different club, obviously, when they play in the Champions League, and Bayern Munich still have some work to do against Celtic at the Allianz Arena on Tuesday. So we're going to recap those games, and then, of course, the previous show for next weekend as well. And until then, auf Wiedersehen.